This is Morgan Freeman. If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
This is The Edge.
Edge-show.com.
Edge lubricates as it lathers.
Edge-show.com.
Listen to the phone side, then listen to the Edge side.
Edge-show.com.
Phone, Edge.
Edge-show.com.
This is The Edge.
Hey, this is Mark. Thanks for being here. We had a little bit of a hiatus because I was traveling in Asia. If you want to hear stories of traveling in exotic lands and meeting exotic people, you'll hear them in another episode. I don't discuss it this episode, but I will and look forward to doing that maybe next time. This time, we're joined by Carol Leifer. This is the show that we recorded right before I left, so you're up to speed. And Carol is an extremely talented, funny producer, stand-up comic. She was a producer on Seinfeld and has been involved in everything from the Larry Sanders Show to the CBS sitcom Rules of Engagement and the Academy Awards. I mean, Carol has done so much professionally, but her personal life is fascinating. She came out as a lesbian late in life. She'd already been married. And this one relationship that she's had with this special woman has lasted all these many years. I'll let her get into it, but we talk about it in this show. Sometimes somebody comes into the studio and you just think, wow, having her on the show is almost just an excuse to spend some time with her. That's the way I feel about Carol. Before we get to that, we do the Fast 15 minutes of politics and more with Michael Shure. He's one of the top political minds in the country, and we're so grateful that he spends time with us on this show. Speaking of grateful, thank you for all the ways you support this show. Thank you for subscribing to the show, for recommending it to your friends and helping us grow the audience. And thank you for anything you throw us to help defray our costs. This show runs in the red, but every little bit that you throw us along the way, and you can see all the different ways to support us, clicking through the Amazon link and on our PayPal link, all of those you can see at edge-show.com, edge-show.com. All right. Again, thanks for being here. On with the show.
This is The Edge.
Time for the Fast 15, politics and more with Michael Shure, everyone.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well, settle down, everybody.
They're always good. It's always a sold-out crowd, and I appreciate it.
Well, Michael, you are a busy guy. Never has politics been more in the news, meaning never has politics been the thing that has sort of buoyed all boats that are news-related. You see CNN numbers at all-time highs. You see MSNBC numbers. I mean, no one used to watch some of these networks like MS. What's going on in Washington with the Trump administration has created a new interest in politics. So that aside, I mean, probably good for your business in a way. I want you to help navigate some of the stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to ask you about is something that I see a lot in all these networks, and that is, the president's approval ratings at an all-time low, and the president's approval rating. And on one level, you're thinking, well, hey, guys, the election's over. Doesn't matter what his approval rating is. But actually, it sort of does matter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it matters a lot because it matters in terms of keeping for lack of a better word, a coalition government together. So it's easier for Republicans who are dubious of Don Trump to look at Pennsylvania Avenue and think, I'm supporting him because he's supporting some of my ideas. A lot of my constituents supported him, but a lot of them sort of came around to him and were voting against the other party. As soon as there's blood in the water, and 37% approval rating is blood in the water, these Republicans, and you're seeing it, I think, a little bit on health care, are going away from him. Because the cost of going away from a president becomes less intense if the president is so unpopular. So this number matters a lot. It matters going into 2018. It matters for people in competitive House races who are Republicans. But it also matters because it makes it more likely that Republicans are going to splinter and go against this White House, and some of them will run.
Now let's go to this whole issue of the Russian connection.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, Paul Manafort's connection to Ukraine was known at the time that Paul Manafort first joined the Trump campaign. When I say it was known, I mean, I knew it.
Yeah, no, that was known. What wasn't, and there was great reporting by Michael Isikoff that showed that off, and people should go to Yahoo and read some of that stuff from this past summer. But I do think that when you look at what's happening now, it's a different level of Russia. It's people who were actually communicating directly with Russians who were communicating directly to exact change upon our election here. That's a very different level of, I was on Ukraine's payroll, right? This is somebody who is being paid to do that. And that's a big thing. And that could be, Judd Legum said yesterday that it could be the biggest political scandal in our history. I don't know if it is or not, and I don't know if it will be or not, because I think there were doubts going in. This wasn't a huge surprise, as you said, but this is real stuff, and it's different than the Intelligence Committee soap opera that's also playing out.
You mentioned the Intelligence Committee soap opera. You're talking about Nunes going first to Donald Trump as opposed. Take us through that quickly.
Well, Devin Nunes is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He got wind through his sources and people with whom he's spoken. He speaks to people that are far more involved than anyone because he's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. That, in fact, that there was monitoring, wiretapping, there was interference with communications going into Trump Tower during the transition from foreign nationals. Well, that's something, just like you knew Ukraine, we knew that. FISA courts have been able to monitor foreign nationals calling into the United States for a very long time with these warrants. It's no different at Trump Tower than it is, at the Bank of Bismarck in North Dakota. If somebody from a foreign country is calling in, that call could be subject to monitoring. It happened there. It could have been as simple as the Prime Minister of Barbados calling the president-elect to say congratulations on your victory, right? It could have been as massive as somebody from a third world nation calling in and saying, if you give us money, we'll do this. Who knows what it was? It was happening, and we knew it was happening. But what it did was created this cloud that allowed Donald Trump to say, see, we were wiretapped at Trump Tower. Totally different. And Nunes said absolutely unequivocally there were no Russians involved in this, which is what we are following. He also did it, as you said, without consulting with his ranking member, Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff was pissed, and he came out and gave his own press conference. He did it before he went to the White House. He did it after he spoke with the speaker. Whether or not he told the speaker that he was going to do it is huge, because if the speaker signed off on this impromptu press conference, that's breaks with every kind of precedent. You don't do that. And Nunes is in a heap of trouble for it.
This really goes to what I think has happened in this country, and I suppose in a way it's inevitable. It feels as though politics has become a lot of theater, and I think that's what won the election for Donald Trump. And honestly, he was a better candidate from the standpoint of theater than Hillary Clinton was. And obviously a lot is to presentation when it comes to running, but let's leave the election behind us and let's just talk about everyone wanting to grab that spotlight. And I felt Nunes in that moment wanted his moment.
Yeah.
Is there, in other words, I guess I see theater jamming the world of government and governing in a way that I've never seen it before.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. I think if you follow this stuff for a long time, you see the theatrical side of it all the time. And I know you have, and listen, you spent a lot of time in Washington. And
but I haven't followed it like you have.
I know, but good for you. But the point is that, there are people who are in it for that. Donald Trump went in it as a theater person. He was a showman, right? We said that all along. So, of course, he's going to be better at it. Jesse Ventura, the same thing when he was governor of Minnesota. Those acts get tired, as they do in show business, as they will in politics too. But this was political too. So this was Devin Nunes, with tacit approval from others, doing this to deflect attention from the White House and Russia to make it seem like Trump was not so wrong when he said Trump Tower was wiretapped. That's politics. And if you're good at the theater of it, John Boehner tapped Devin Nunes to be a star in that party a long time ago. He saw him, he liked his Latin roots, he liked the fact that intelligence was what he wanted at a time when intelligence was important. So he has this chance right now. But you have to know when to play the theater of politics, and it's not all the time. Sometimes you have to be reasonable with it. But there are Republicans who probably think this was good politics because it did create a muddy water around the Trump allegations of wiretapping.
That's very well explained. So in essence, it was politics and to whatever degree there was a theatrical moment,
Right.
it was coincident with politics.
Yeah.
As everyone's aware, there's a Supreme Court nomination
Right.
that's so that confirmation process goes on, and
that's always theater. I mean, that's whether you have Democrats running the committee, Republicans running the committee. It's always theater because you talk about the gravitas of the job, and you talk about the history of the founding fathers, and because what it is, it's a 3-day appreciation of the Constitution, because you have a judge who says he's sticking to it, and you have people against him who are saying, well, I think you're going to veer from it, and how are you going to interpret it? So that's one that you could close the doors on and probably be a lot more effective.
confirmation hearings, for those who haven't watched them, essentially, as Michael says, they'll ask a question like, what do you think of the Declaration of Independence? And then
Well, Senator, it sucks. It's the worst document.
Gorsuch will begin, or whomever,
Right.
in this case it's Gorsuch, and he'll begin his studied speech on Declaration of Independence. Studied meaning it just feels quite, laborious as he goes through it, but it also is theatrical with those dramatic pauses. You feel as though you could fade up Battle Hymn of the Republic in the background, and it would totally
Yeah.
just have a...
And it's by definition evasive, because these judges do not want to answer the questions that the senators want to ask in a way that is underscored in all caps, in a way that no other hearing ever is. I mean, this is really, they want to be as evasive as possible. The senators want to know how they would rule on certain things. They're never going to say it. So it's a futile exercise, and they all do. Well, listen, I mean, he's Neil Gorsuch. As much as I disagree with him, and I think that I would not want him to be a justice, he comes across as a nice guy, calm, reasonable, family loving, charming at points, lame sense of humor, which works its way as a judge. That kind of stuff, I think, is it works in these hearings. So that's where the theater really comes out, and that's where I want to come full circle just for 10 seconds here on your first question about the president's popularity rating. Right now, across the hall, they're voting, or they're posturing for a vote on the AHCA, which is the response to the Affordable Care Act, and 37%. It's a lot easier for senators and congresspeople to vote against the president, who's at 37%, and this is going to go down if it goes to a vote tonight on Thursday. I mean, or if it goes to a vote, it's going to go down. He knows it, the Congress knows it, and if his ratings were at 68%, it wouldn't go down necessarily. It would be popular.
This is how what he does, by the way, with Twitter and these comments that have nothing to do with anything, and do affect his approval rating, this is how that affects his policy.
Correct.
And so the two things are related.
Yeah, they're very, very much related. I mean, healthcare in the United States could remain the same as we have it under the Affordable Care Act because the president's at 37%. I mean, that's not an unreasonable connection to make. And that's why Gorsuch, who may be filibustered, Chuck Schumer said that he may not vote, he's not going to vote for him, which may lead to a filibuster of Neil Gorsuch. With a very popular president, there may be Democrats who come along and say, I'm going to support Gorsuch now. That's not happening right now. Again, we don't know. None of these votes have taken place, and we don't know that connection can definitely be made, but it certainly doesn't help when you're at 37%.
One thing Congress does get done is ruining the natural resources of this great country. They wasted no time on this. They just rolled back the ban on hunting that goes on in
bears,
in the wildlife refuges in Alaska. So those who want to go to Alaska and see a bear, do it soon.
Yeah.
Because the bears and the fish and all the wildlife up there, no match for the technology of hunters. And hunters, I know a couple of hunters listen to the show. I just wish we could hunt stuff that's not in national parks and, when it comes to some of these terrific things that are those parks.
Yeah, different than you, I don't even understand hunting. And I'm tired of people who, when they go up against the gun lobby, say, well, no, I understand hunting. I don't. I grew up in New York City. I don't have to understand hunting. I know you're out there and you hunt. I just don't get it. That said, what Mark said is true. Like, there's no need to do it in national parks. And if there is, if there's population control, which I know is good for a species, because I know biologists and scientists say that it often is, culling the herd and whatnot, I haven't seen its necessity city and national parks. But again, I don't know enough about that. I just do know that Mark's right again, in that as soon as the administration changed, these rules start changing.
Yeah, and that's just a piece of it, really. I view all these things as natural resources, and the other bans that were rolled back were the bans associated with chemical dumping, primarily from oil companies into streams and waterways.
Right.
Now that can be done essentially unabated. I mean, it's amazing. You wouldn't think, but that was one of the first orders of business in the first couple of weeks. So we always like to get Michael onto to some other things, and one of the things that we were talking about is related to ticket scalping. When you have a hot event, you're trying to get tickets to something. In the old days, pre-internet kids, you used to have to go to the event and hope that somebody was selling tickets to the event, and then you would try to make a deal in the street. It was almost like a drug deal.
No, it was. You'd go late. You knew you were being taken because you were just the guy. They were the pros. They knew everything. They would laugh at you if you undercut them, and then you'd just cut them, right? It was like, be like, all right, I'll give you $20 for that ticket. Are you kidding me? $20? Forget it. Walks away, and they go, all right, I'll give you $40, and then it's your ticket.
And there was
terrible negotiating.
And if you had a ticket, you had to make that deal the same way,
right?
Well, with the internet, the brokers that used to exist on the street now exist on the internet street,
right?
And so you have StubHub, and you have
StubHub isn't even a broker. They found this great way of making $20 off of a $100 ticket, right? I mean, they're getting $40 because they're getting 20. Like if you buy a ticket for $100, you're spending $120 on it. You sell it for $100, you're getting $80 for it. So they're making $40 for every $100.
Right, they're
amazing.
a clearinghouse for those who want to sell and buy tickets.
Right.
But what a great way! Everybody wins.
StubHub wins more.
StubHub is the big winner, yeah.
I mean, because you could sell, but you're right, Mark. I mean, they created an industry, so kudos to them for doing it. It's a lot easier. A lot of the time, you can't use your tickets. It's because you actually can't go. So you can't go down and sell your tickets at the game because you just simply are in Houston that night. So it's, but the idea that you can do that, and I've done it the past few weeks. I've been an active StubHub user. It's amazing. It's one of these things that you marvel at. And then the ticket shows up, and you're like a minute later at your
it's
house.
wild. They really do deliver.
Yeah, they do.
For those who are not familiar with the process of trying to dump a ticket in front of a venue, it is a different kind of jungle.
It is.
Because you need to know what to say and how to approach it, and you feel like an outlaw right away. Most of us are not used to breaking the law. It's
right.
illegal. I had an extra ticket to Book of Mormon, and I thought, this will be easy. At the time, it was the hottest show in New York. It was like Hamilton is now.
Right. It was. It really was.
And there were lines. I've got video of the lines down the block to get in. And I thought, this will be easy. Okay, so if the ticket cost me $500, but I'll dump it in front of the theater, and if I get $500, I'll be happy. Because I was just myself. So I have this extra seat, and I'm there in front of the theater, and I go 2 hours ahead of time. And I'm, ma'am, you interested in, I've got a ticket if you want one. Sir, I've got a ticket if you want one. Nobody's got $500 cash on them.
Right.
That's, first of all, that should have hit me, but it didn't.
But it should, I disagree that it should have hit you. Somebody who's going to stand outside to buy a ticket to Book of Mormon at that time, or Hamilton now, should have $500 in their pocket.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
Because you know what it's going to cost.
The top offer I got that day was from an old woman who was online for future ticket sales. She's there and she said, I'll give you $140 for it because that's the face value.
Right.
And I showed her the receipt from StubHub. I said, ma'am, look, I paid $500 for this ticket. I said, I'd rather burn it than sell it for $140. All of that was lost on her at that moment.
Well, then burn it, boy.
Yeah, right. And so I did. I went into the venue. I put my shopping bag on the empty seat, and I saw Book of Mormon. It cost me $1,000. I mean, that was insane.
Yeah.
Now, you have to put that out of your head to enjoy the performance. But
you do, and it was an unbelievably good musical.
But it wasn't. It's not worth $1,000.
No.
But
I just took a loss very quickly. I had to buy for my son, who's a big hockey fan and a big Rangers fan, and they come out to California infrequently. We're going to the game against Anaheim on Sunday, and his birthday present was seats on the glass at a hockey game because it's fun. You're right in the action, and we're near the Rangers bench and all of that, so it's great. But the person who was selling the only seats on the glass that were for sale, and they were exorbitantly expensive, were either he had 3 seats, so you could buy 3 or one, but you couldn't buy just a pair, which is what we needed. So I bought them, and then moments later turned around and listed one ticket on StubHub for less than I paid for it, because one is a tough sell.
Sure.
And I got hundreds of dollars for it, but it was a little less than what I paid. But that you could do that, I was like, wow, this is great. It was fun taking the loss because it was just such a cool process.
Yeah. And by the way, the coda to the Book of Mormon story is that 2 months later, I'm crossing the street in Santa Monica, and I'm waiting on the corner for the light to turn. And I look to my right, and there's Andrew Rannells. He's the lead in the Book of Mormon. And I said, hey, I just saw you in New York. You were terrific and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I have to tell you the story quite quickly. And I told him,
hello, my name is Elder Thompson.
I wish I would have thought of that. Of course. And I told him the story about paying the $1,000 and, with the extra ticket. And he laughed and he said, wow. He said, I hope you had fun. That's a lot of money for that show,
But he didn't give you $140.
Yeah, no. I said, yeah. Listen, could you to that point? Could you knock me down a little? You're doing well, Michael. We love seeing you, Michael Shure. Keep us posted on everything going on in Washington and beyond.
I'll do my best. I love being here, Mark.
Michael Shure, everybody.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thanks. We'll be back. Okay, I will.
Wow.
This is The Edge.
She's a producer, she's a writer, she's a person of conscience, and she's funny as fuck. Carol Leifer is here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw Carol Leifer at the Improv, and this isn't years ago. This is a week ago.
That's right.
And it was an incredibly funny show.
Oh, Mark, thank you.
In fact, we were doing your bits. You know how you go, and it was funny when they did that part and you start doing the bit to each other?
Yeah.
We were doing that the next morning.
That's so great. I love it. Well, you came because I was co-headlining with the great Kevin Pollak.
Yes, friend of the show.
And how are you about, I don't like to know when people I know are in the audience. So I didn't know that you were there. So that was even better, because if I knew you were there, I would have gotten a little, Mark, a little
nice.
Nervous. But so
there were a
glad
lot
you
of
came.
people there, I think, who were there were industry people there, a lot of them I noticed.
Were there really?
Yes, there were.
I didn't see many.
Yeah, because...
Jane Lynch came.
Oh, I didn't see Jane.
Jane
I love
Lynch
Jane.
was there, yes.
Exciting.
Used to do tons of voiceover with Jane Lynch, and she started as a voiceover actress.
Oh, did she?
Yeah,
I
and
didn't
then she
know
just
that.
exploded.
Yeah. And she's in a little short film that I wrote.
Oh.
Yeah. So we've been doing the film festival circuit together.
Well, Carol's done so many things.
Have I?
Yeah, well, you were one of the straws mixing the drink at Seinfeld,
Yes.
producer, writer. Some of the most memorable episodes came out of your head. I love, even now, seeing Seinfeld in syndication. It continues,
It does. It does.
We had Glenn Padnick on this show very early. Do you know that the executive at Castle Rock?
I sure do remember Glenn. I can hear his laugh on the
He's a good laugher.
on the soundtrack when I rewatch Seinfeld. Yes.
And if you haven't heard that conversation, listeners, you should go back and find that conversation. It's great. It gives you a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. And I'll ask Carol some stuff. I know she's sick of answering questions about Seinfeld, but still, we'll ask her a question or two. But one thing he said that I remember was the audience was so hot. That is, they were so reactive.
Yes.
That they literally had to tell people, you gotta just, like when Michael Richards would enter a scene.
Right.
Guys, you cannot, the 5-minute ovation is...
But the warm-up guy thought it was because of him.
I don't actually remember that as much as I remember Larry David was a little persnickety, as one can be when it's your show, about he didn't like when people were kissing in scenes and the audience would go, woo!
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would do another take and go, you guys have to cut that out.
Right.
But no, the audiences were really great and very hot. And what I loved about Seinfeld, too, was, the outdoor scenes that you see that we shot on New York Street, the cast would reenact for the live audience. So it wasn't like they would just play it for the audience. Oh, here's what we taped. The actors would act it out in front of the audience. And I think to this day, it's still fantastic that they did that.
And is that the audience track they would use on the show?
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
okay.
Oh, wow.
So it was always very real that way. And, same thing as a regular TV taping. If a joke missed, the writers would huddle around and come up with other jokes. I can always tell on shows the stand-ups, the former stand-ups who are writers now versus writers, because, the stand-ups are always like, all right, let's write a few more jokes right there, where like writers are sometimes like, oh, let's in post, let's turn up Laffy the laugh machine and make it better. And it's like, no, let's
get a joke that works.
Yeah.
Great.
It worked on paper.
Exactly.
There's a huge difference between the two kinds of writers,
Yeah.
I've found.
When you were doing Seinfeld, as the show gained in popularity, and that happened maybe initially slowly, but then it kind of blew up, right?
Yeah. When I first started, it was season 5, and it wasn't yet the mega hit. But really, honestly, 2 years earlier, it was on the fence whether NBC would pick it up. And I'm sure Glenn Padnick, when he was on, talked about it was a different era in TV, and it probably would have been canceled after one season. But they really hung in there, NBC, with the show. They really valued it and had faith in it, where now it's just a numbers game, and it's not about, how somebody feels about a show. It's just numbers and graphs. And that really kind of people hanging in there made it a hit.
Did then the life on Seinfeld, the daily life of putting the show on, change after it hit that critical mass and it got big?
It didn't at all.
No,
absolutely.
Like the catering didn't all of a sudden become Wolfgang Puck, making stuff for lunch.
No, I think what was nice about it was, the masters of the ship were Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, and everything emanated from them. And what I liked about working with them, for them, was they were really model bosses. I mean, they didn't treat any crew member differently than a suit, maybe a crew member even better than a suit. And I think with success just came, before I got there is that story that NBC said to Larry David with the Chinese restaurant episode, you can't have an entire episode happen in one set. You just can't do it. And he was like, well, that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do. So I think after the mega success of it, I think they knew that they really had to leave him alone.
Right.
But it wasn't like before he took all their notes and suggestions. He was a very... the best shows are where the showrunner know the brand, know what the show is, and know the sensibility, and don't let anybody else mess with it. A lot of times now, too, showrunners don't really have that luxury because you are kind of you're paid by demand and you have to listen. But at that time, he really, was so committed to his vision of what the show was.
I was on Freaks and Geeks, and Judd Apatow was running that show, and he was willing to fight the good fight every single time.
Right.
But they hated him by the end of it. So it was
Exactly.
It didn't save the show. It allowed us to make the 18 episodes we wanted to make.
Right.
But it didn't get us a second season.
Yeah, no, it's a a tricky balance, but luckily it worked out in the end. I mean, all of these stories and more, if I could plug,
I was just about to mention that
are in my book, How to
Carol
Succeed in Business Without Really Crying, and I talk a lot about Seinfeld and the lessons I learned working there, which were many.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Crying.
Yes.
Carol Leifer has not only written this book, I read your last book as well.
Yeah.
And it was really funny.
Thank
I learned
you.
a lot about your life I didn't know.
Wow.
You have a lot of great things to say about your dad.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of that one?
When you lie about your age, the terrorists win. So look for it.
But this one has lessons in business and life that you picked up along the way.
You know what? When they approached me about writing a memoir, I thought, I have a lot to say, but I also feel like I want to impart a lot of the stuff I learned, like the smart things I think I did along the way, and really examine the boneheaded things I did and convey that so other people don't take those missteps in the business.
What was was there an overarching theme to the boneheadedness?
Tell us whatever you can, quickly.
Quick fact.
Oh, I mean, was there a through line to the boneheadedness? Was there a theme that emerged?
Not exactly a theme as much as I had a tendency, I think, early on in my career, like when I wrote for SNL, I was 29. I mean, I was really still kind of new to the business. And that young age, I felt like when people weren't responding to me or liking my ideas, I kind of flew under the radar and kind of retreated. And I learned a very big lesson that in show business, when that happens, it's very bad to retreat and to fly under people's radar. It's to change your mindset and say, if people aren't responding to my ideas or liking them, I've got to get in there more and show them that I have what it takes, instead of kind of, just skirting people and being invisible. Because when I worked at SNL, of course, Lorne Michaels was the executive producer, and he, that's another big lesson I learned. He was the boss, and I felt like he really didn't respond to me. So my sketches that I got on, through Al Franken, who was a producer and fellow writer at the time, and a guy named Jim Downey. And I was getting stuff on, and I felt like, well, if I'm getting it on, these sketches through Al and Jim Downey, I'm doing okay. But it's like, there's only one boss, and you got to please your boss. You can't kind of, elude him. And that was a big lesson I learned. Yeah.
That's excellent, actually.
Yeah.
I can go back to my career and think, oh, yeah, because I thought better just to stay out of this, and you don't get to be radioactive. But if you stay out of it too much, you don't get to participate in it.
Right.
The caveat to that, I think, though, is like in writers' rooms where the answer isn't simply pitch more, because you have to feel the room. You have to feel
Absolutely.
Whoever has the pencil.
Right.
It's your job to please the person who has the pencil.
Yes.
It's not your job to get more jokes in. It's your job to get him or her out of the room.
Yeah, and that's a
quick as
really
you
good
can.
point that you bring up, because I have also known writers who have been on really A-level, top-notch shows who got fired because they overpitched.
Right, absolutely.
Where the showrunner said, you know what, they weren't getting the vibe of like, you got to lay back a little bit. And so much, I think, of business, in show business, in any business, is reading a room, and reading where you need to come alive more and where you kind of need to step back. Right. It's like they always say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, yeah, a squeaky wheel gets grease, but could also be like so annoying that you take the bike and you throw it out. It's like a fine balance.
Well,
I
moved out as a kid to LA. I started doing stand up when I was 15 and moved out here when I was 20, and I was from Minnesota. And so I would go to these meetings and I came out basically to be a writer. And I'd go to these meetings and people would talk, and because I was from Minnesota, I would politely sit there and let them talk.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
I'd leave the meeting and they'd call my agent and go, he doesn't seem very funny.
Yeah.
And I learned that there's a show involved. You have to put on a show when you're going into these meetings. There is a heightened version of yourself you have to present.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I talk about in my book that seems like, the most elementary thing, but it's kind of like the perennial is, I always say to people, don't be late. If you have a meeting, don't show up late. I cannot tell people how many times someone's late, and I know it from the other side of the, slacker 25-year-old who's like, yeah, I'm going to show up a little late and show them like I'm cool and I'm not like, I'm
not a slave to the clock.
Yeah, exactly. And then how when they get there and they're late, it's already you're 80%. It's going to be a pass because you made these people mad.
Show business is all about filters as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So anytime you can give someone a reason to take you off the list and make the list shorter,
that's so true.
Then they'll take it.
Carol, that could have been another chapter in your book right there.
Absolutely.
It? Yeah, Josh, maybe
Clock
the
that
next
for the
one.
next book. Yeah.
I know. Can I take that
Please,
for
by all means.
the 2 version?
This is 2 books, and they had to be different. I mean, I got to think the discipline of writing a book, I guess if you're a writer, maybe that's not a big deal. I'm just thinking it's very hard to crack a book out. The discipline of writing a book, there has to be a through line. There has to be a rallying point. Your personal story is very compelling. I'd love to get into it a little bit because it's really cool.
Sure.
And that's what the first book was about.
Okay.
I mean, that's a read, man. That's just a page turner, and it's funny. I mean, the book's good. It's
Well,
entertaining.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that book's called
When You Lie About Your Age, the Terrorists Win.
Okay, and the new book's
Yes.
called
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Crying.
Yeah.
See, what she did is...
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was going to ask you a question about writing a book, but I guess it's the same discipline that is associated with so many things that you write, scripts and any kind of vision you have.
Right.
You
And-
just have to bring that discipline to
And
it.
a basic foundation of my, philosophy for being in the business for, this year is going to be 40 years, which is like crazy.
Wow.
Is, you just got to keep doing it. You know, like with stand-up, it's just, you got to do it and do it and do it. I mean, I love these people like, oh, they take a stand-up class at, you know, Comedy University. You're like, all right, I'm ready to be a comedian. It's like, no, now you got to go out and do it and do it, do it. And it's the same thing with writing. You got to sit down and just make yourself do it. And you get better just from the act of doing it and doing it.
Let me ask you a question about stand-up, because you really came up with an elite group of stand-ups, and you yourself were, I remember when you had I'm trying to think of what it was for. You had a billboard on Sunset Boulevard in the 90s.
Ooh. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
For my Showtime special.
Yeah, for a Showtime special. Okay, that's Carol Leifer, everyone. I mean, you've really been at the top of the game with others who were the top of the game. I'm talking about Letterman and Shandling. Everybody was coming up at the same time. That's the same class, more or less.
Yeah, and when I auditioned at Catch a Rising Star my first time with Paul Reiser, who I went with, who was my boyfriend in college and told me about these comedy clubs. Absolutely.
How fun.
Jerry Seinfeld was the MC at the comic strip who put us through. And when I went to audition at Catch a Rising Star, the MC that night was Larry David, who put me through. So it's literally going back to my first day in show business with these guys.
Wow.
Now, how was it different then, the stand-up scene, than it is now? Because you're still at the clubs. As I say, I saw you the other night, and you're hilarious.
Yes. And can I tell you other places that I'm going to be? The fabulous Wendy Liebman, who is so funny.
Very funny.
April 12th, I'm going to be with her at Vitello's. May 12th, I'm going to be with her at the Improv. And April 17th, Kevin Pollak, again, at Flappers.
Oh, that's great. It's right down the street in Burbank.
Yes.
Wait, at Vitello's?
Yeah.
Upstairs?
Yeah, she does it once a month.
And if you want to come, you guys, you let me know.
I live across
come
the
as
street.
my guest. You're kidding. You just pop on over.
I go there
Absolutely.
for a martini after the show once in a while. I love Vitello's.
I go there all the time with my family. The food is fantastic.
Yeah, I just
Really
took my
is.
dad there. He came to visit. Loved it.
Yeah.
You know
it
who I
is
saw
really
do a
good.
wacky show there at Vitello's? Is
Robert
Allie
Blake.
Willis.
Weird.
Yes. There's a history.
That's right.
There is a
They've got.
history.
They're so far
Shot
away
his
from
wife.
that.
It was funny.
They've moved far away from
They
being
did.
that
They actually,
Vitello's.
for that stain, they moved past it pretty well.
Tough to get that one out. That upstairs room, though, is fun. So you've obviously been through the stand-up scene. All those great places to still see you, all these places that you're continuing to work. But you're really swimming in exactly the same environment, same clubs. It's just a new class of very funny people. How is the scene different? How has it changed through the years?
You know, I think it's changed mostly in that literally, like when I started doing stand-up, there were like 6 comedians. I mean, you kind of knew everybody that was kind of out there. It was really that small a pool of comedians. And now it's overrun, but I think in a great way. And it's not like, oh, it's overrun and the quality's gone down. There are so many great comedians now.
I think there's more good comics right now than there's ever been, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's amazing. But what I love about stand-up is the art form never changes. I mean, you go up there, and, you know, Seinfeld talked about this in his documentary Comedian. You go up there, and even if you're a big star, you get the first few minutes free pass because you're a celebrity, and then it's like, all right, what are the jokes? What are the jokes?
Right.
And it's all the same dynamics. Are you going on when people are drunk and have to deal with that? Are you going on at the check spot? You know that, Mark, that famous spot where they put the waitresses put the checks down, and you really have to fight for the audience's attention. I mean, none of that changes at all. It's still the same game. Go up, tell jokes. They work or they don't.
This is maybe a difficult thing to put your finger on, but do you get the same? One of the things I think might bring people back to the stage as a comic, even after they've had great success in all these other forums, and we've seen it with Seinfeld, you see it with Larry David, and people still, Chappelle, all the rest, you can go on and on and on. And Carol Leifer is one of them. You go back to the stage, and I'm wondering, that feeling, is it still the same or close to the same, or what is it? Can you articulate that? What do you still get that brings you back there?
You know, there's just nothing like it. And any comedian you know will tell you that you have to love that feeling or you'll never last 3 seconds, you know, in it.
It's also pressure, though, that feeling.
It is
isn't it?
pressure, too, but I think I'm at this stage now, going back to stand-up, I'm just loving it even more because, you know, there's nothing like a new joke, doing a new joke and it working. I mean, it's a high that will take you for the whole week. And it's still such a game. You never know. The joke that you think, oh, my God, I wrote this joke. This is going to be the cornerstone of my act. And it bombs. And then the throwaway thing that you thought would get nothing gets an enormous laugh. And I love that roll of the dice when you go up there, you know. And I also love talking about, you know, personal things. It's very cathartic for me. You know, I think when you were there, I talked about turning 60.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And, you know, it was really, for me.
By the way, I can't believe you're 60. I mean, I'm looking at Carol Leifer, and I'm not just blowing smoke up a guest's ass. I mean, you really, I can't believe you're 60. You don't look 60 at all.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But, you know, anyway, and I was really kind of afraid of it. Like, I go on stage, and I work in Hollywood and talking about my age, and I cannot tell you how freeing it's been to go up on stage and talk about it. And people are, like, so supportive about it. And, you know, and I even feel like younger people dig me talking about it because it's like, well, you know, you'll be older too, as the Beatles once said.
That's the scene in LA now too. Is that everything is so confessional.
Yeah.
Everything, and there is such a like almost like that's the art form now. How much can you reveal about yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that that came out of the crash of the 80s.
Right.
You know,
yes.
just an attitude with punchlines, and the alt scene being just shitting out notebook stuff. Like those two things merged into like feelings with punchlines, you know? And it's become a really vital scene.
And it's really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, now my birthday was such a trauma to me, and now it's like exciting to me to go and talk about it because it kind of demystified it.
It's always fun to hear. I don't have any children, so it's always fun to hear. Everybody goes, "Oh, man, you've got to have kids. It's so great. It's so great." And I think it is great. And then like even when I see a picture of Bruno, it just lights me up. It's just great. It's a great feeling when you don't have kids and you see somebody else's child growing. It's a great feeling. But having said that, I also like to hear about those moments that are awkward and weird. And you told a story about taking him somewhere, and you passed a sign for topless maids.
Yes.
I think I saw. Did you tweet about that?
No.
Oh, somebody tweeted about it.
You know.
You see them here in town.
I've seen that van parked here.
Yeah, you tweeted about it. Yeah.
I mean, it's what I also love about doing stand-up. You know, I have a young son, my wife and I, who's 10, and, you know, we did pass this topless maids van, and of course, you know, he's like Mike Wallace in the backseat. Mommy, what is this topless maids? And
you had to be dreading that.
I was, absolutely. And my
like,
first,
God, why did we teach this child to read?
Yeah. And my first stab was like, well, sometimes people like it when other people don't wear their shirts. And then it was like, you mean like the time I walked in on Grandma coming out of the shower? And it was like, no. And nobody likes that. You know, all the real questions I
Some maids wear hats.
And it's so fun to me to talk about, you know, these real life moments. I mean, even that I talk about when I was growing up, I wanted to see, you know, I dreamed of watching The Wizard of Oz. And you would see it on TV if one of the 3 channels at the time would show it. And if you missed it, oh, well, I guess I'll try to catch it next year. You know, and, I mean, my son has this cornucopia of entertainment, but it's wild. You know, we took him to the theater like when he was 4 years old, and we're sitting at the Pantages, and it's completely dark on stage, and he turns to us and he goes, "Is it loading?"
No way.
That's great.
Yeah, see, that's funny.
Oh, that's
like life is
magnificent.
funny.
It is really.
And it's relatable and real.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's what I love. I didn't even have to write that joke. It just happened, and then I go up on stage and talk about it.
Oh,
is it loading?
That's just too good. Well, you know, you mentioned it. The other thing you talked about on stage, and I always forget when you talk about it on stage, I feel like, oh, it's such a well-known fact. But most people probably don't know. You've had this amazing life, first as a heterosexual, right?
Yes.
And then you became a wild, crazy lesbian.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if I would call it wild.
I need to read that book.
Lesbian.
Yeah. Maybe I might have, in my mind, I've made it wild and crazy.
Yeah, I was married, and then I got divorced, and I realized, you know, I was gay. I mean, basically what happened when I was 40, divorced, childless, single, and I figured there's got to be one more way to really piss off my mom. And there you go. Yeah, no, and I write a lot about that in my book because, you know, to have this kind of change of, you know, sexuality at 40 was wild. And not only that, you know, the first woman that I met and I thought had my kind of lesbian fling crush on is now my wife, and we're together 20 years. So it's crazy.
Did you date anybody else?
No.
Stop it.
No.
Come on.
It's really wild.
Oh,
Isn't
my
that? Yeah.
gosh.
I always like
That's
call
pretty
her-
cool.
It is, yeah. And I always say, I said in our marriage vows, it's so like right wing, like first love, you know, except for the gay part. Yeah. No,
But
it's
you
crazy.
That's
but
cool.
you didn't feel these gay feelings until you were seated next to her at an event, or you did feel those gay feelings?
I really wanted to have a gay, like I thought, I want to have a gay fling. Like that became kind of my drive. Like that's what I want to happen. And when I met Lori and she sat across, you know, me from this, at this Project Angel Food event, I thought, oh, you know, I like her. And talking to her, I liked her even more. And that's how a friend kind of like hooked us up together.
Now,
But she was kind of onto me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just wondering if she was in a relationship with
She
a man
was. She was
also?
actually no. She was with a date at this Project Angel Food with a woman. And my friend, I was like, kind of like, oh, can you suss out the situation? And she was like, well, I don't want to be some experiment for some straight girl. So it kind of took a while. I had to use my wiles to make it happen. But yeah, no, it's a really, really wild story. And then finally, when we did get together, we went to Hawaii. And, you know, I was so excited to have this trip, you know, exotic trip with her. And, you know, we had one of these talkative bellmen that was like, can I put the bag down? You know, here's the thermostat and, you know, your shades. I was like, can this guy get out of here? And then Lori had brought this scuba diving bag. And then the guy's making conversation and goes, so you girls planning on doing any diving while you're down here? I was like, buddy, you have no idea.
Leave.
Get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny.
So,
that's too good.
Yeah.
This hotel has entendre service.
Wow. Yeah, and then you adopted, you become parents together. You've
Yes.
adopted a little boy who's not quite so little anymore.
Yeah, he's going to be 11. It's crazy. It's just wild. And, you know, I really thought about that too. Like, it was such a driving force for Lori really wanted to adopt a child. And I thought, geez, I'm 50. I don't know if I can do this. Because I thought like the other moms would be like, oh, you know, she could be my mom. Like, nobody cares. That's the big news. Nobody cares. What they care about is, you know, can you be the mom on the next school field trip? Can you bring something to the bake sale? And, you know, the answer to both those questions is no, teen mom. I'm exhausted. You do it, but...
You know, I just saw Hoda Cobb adopted a baby.
Did she?
Yesterday. Or she's like she was born on Valentine's Day.
Oh, my God.
And she's
I had
53.
No idea.
Yeah.
Wow, how great.
Yeah, she
That's
just announced it this morning. Or
Did she
something.
still have her boyfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But she didn't mention him.
Oh, she didn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's nice. No, I love it. I mean, I always say to people, don't let, you know, age be a factor because, you know, it's such a beautiful, it's changed my life in such a fantastic way. I mean, it's very weird when you get your mail and there's Parents Magazine and AARP Magazine, but still, it's...
It even made Letterman human.
It did. Huh?
Yeah, that's true. And
But
I think he was over 50 when he
That's
Yeah,
right. He
had
was
his
an
son,
older
too.
dad, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I've got to think also, that crew of people who are becoming new parents at an older age now is a bigger crew than ever
I have
before.
a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
Well, we're living longer. It's like,
But we're waiting longer, is my point.
Right.
yeah, but I
Right.
think we can now. I mean, there's a lot of
because
life
we
to
have
be
so
led.
much life,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't really feel any difference. I mean, and it's true. The moms, you know, that are at school are like 20 years plus younger than me, but it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Also, I would think I feel this way a lot of the time. I go, yeah, that guy doesn't realize what I realize because I'm, 30 years older than he is.
Right.
And I'm sure you have that feeling too. I mean, we're driven by all of this emotion that's unchecked, and we're not thinking it through a lot of the time at a younger age. Sometimes it's
Right.
a good thing.
Yeah.
But I would think as older parents, you kind of go, okay, yeah, let's all just cool our
having,
jets here.
Having
And,
parents who
yeah.
aren't like all stressed out about money and stuff like that is kind of nice, probably too, if you're a kid.
Yeah,
you know?
right. That's a trade-off too, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Just a little bit calmer.
The lesbian world. No, I have to ask that. I'm asking the question. I got it because
Come
I'm telling
into
you.
the
This is
lesbian
why.
world. Enter now.
This is why they come to me, because I asked
The
this question.
lesbian world.
Yeah. Look, that was the working title. They settled on Tomorrowland, but I know what it used.
Well, here's a big difference with Lesbian World because two women, it's interesting. Like when I was with men, the worst thing you could ever say to a guy, could clock it, is just to say, look, we got to talk. Like the look of fear and revulsion that came over their face. I mean, you say, look, we got to talk to another woman. She's like, hey, let's put on a pot of coffee and go all night. It'll be just an hour with how was your day? So, it's
a much nicer
different.
place, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it something that, was it an actual change in you, or was it something that was revealed in you to yourself, or?
It's a very good question. I mean, I did have a bit of an aha moment. It was like when, we got together and we just started kissing, and I've heard other gay people say this, like my head spun around like, oh, wow, this really works. This is like, yeah, okay, this is good. It just, yeah. I mean, and then it kind of, in retrospect, it's funny because some people are like, oh, were you closeted all those years? It's like, I just didn't have kind of the awakening. And I think sometimes people's sexuality can be fluid like that,
Right. As we're discovering that no one wants to commit to a gender or to a sexuality, and no one wants to be pinned down or cornered into being anything anymore. And I mean, that's a good thing that that's part of the freedom that everyone's allowing people now.
Yeah. And there's still, the dishonesty that was in my straight relationships. I mean, when something from Amazon comes that I don't want her to see, I accost the mailman and take it away before she sees it. I'm known to lower the thermostat in the middle of the night without her knowledge, because she likes it like a chick hatching facility. And I'm not a fan of that. So little things like that. In those ways, relationships are all the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So
in Lesbian World.
I think it's a cool thing. I think a lot of people don't, and I include myself, really. I mean, I have so many friends who are, gay or lesbian or whatever, but I don't really know much about the relationship. And I think the fundamental thing is it hasn't really changed anything. I mean, it sounds like it's the same relationship, but just with two people of the same sex. I guess that's essentially true, right? I mean, not just being PC about it. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, like when we're together in the car, she normally drives. There were things where you would just assume a guy drives, that kind of thing.
So that just fell to her because she likes to do it.
Yeah. I guess it just became like, it's so funny though how, things are, especially, from the animal world. Because
Carol's a great.
I'm pescatarian. I'm not.
Oh, are you? I didn't know that.
I'm not.
But she's a great. I was just going to say she's a great champion of animals. Is what I was going to say.
But you'll really, hopefully, enjoy this story, Mark. Anyway, I'm one of those people like you who, when I see a fly, I don't want to kill the fly. I found a great little trick. And if you take a shower cap and you put it over the fly, you can kind of cup it and take it outside, and then I release them. So to differentiate the shower cap, I made a little label and I wrote "fly" on it. And so I take all these flies and, I get rid of the flies. So one morning I walked to the bathroom and Lori's taking a shower. She goes out, she has the shower cap with "fly" on it. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you wearing that? And she was like, oh, I thought it was your travel shower cap because it said "fly." I was like, no, take that off. There have been like 80 million flies in there.
Oh, God.
So you never know.
That's the first thing I thought too. I was like, oh, that's the travel one.
Right, yes.
Oh, God.
See, women think alike.
Oh, God, that's
and
funny.
men, right. You don't have to deal with that. Have you ever seen, does a guy ever wear a shower cap?
No.
Never.
No.
Right.
No. That's, even as you said it, I thought, well, that is a good trick. But where do I get a shower cap? But the answer
hotels.
is
Yes, hotels.
Yeah. I have been single all my life, never married, never wanted to have kids, and I've never wanted to get married. And at one point I thought, well, maybe I'm a lesbian.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Right. So did you?
And I had the reverse aha moment. I got booked on a job. I'm an actor. I got booked on a job where I was playing a lesbian on like the CW.
Okay.
And had to make out extensively with another woman.
Right.
And it was actually a little bit more sort of PG-13 than I anticipated the CW being. Like taking her bra off.
Wow.
Kind of, yes, like closed set kind of thing. But I started kissing her and I was like, not a lesbian.
Doesn't work.
I immediately
see?
knew it. Like her face was too narrow and soft, and I in that moment knew no, I like men.
Look at that.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah.
But I was always just maybe.
Right. You never know.
Yeah.
And then the acting world gave you that opportunity to find out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heather is just coming off she was just on Criminal Minds, so we're very happy with that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she waited patiently for a boyfriend that was in a federal corrections facility.
Is that true?
Yes,
Maybe I should have
absolutely
stuck
true.
with women.
He was there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, it wasn't just like a little 6-month deal.
So you waited and he's out now?
That's where he learned he was
And you're
heterosexual as well.
Are you guys together?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's awesome.
What kind of crime was it?
It was white collar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's
He
exciting
murdered
for
an accountant.
Oh, Josh, you got the extra funnies on
Yeah,
today.
Josh is showing off for Carol Leifer.
That's right.
Yes, it was white collar, but it was
Okay.
he got in trouble around the time that the Madoff thing was happening. So there was a lot of we're going to make examples out of a lot of these guys, and you know
Right.
they probably
but you
should.
don't want to get married, though.
Not
of interest.
I kind of like the idea
She
of
will
being
not go on
engaged.
record at this point again.
But I like the idea of being engaged. You know,
Uh-huh.
sort of making that next level of commitment.
Right.
So maybe, but you know, it's just never been a driving force for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you really think engaged is like a good permanent place to go, though? It's not. If that.
What do you mean?
If you want to be engaged but not married.
No, I don't know.
But engaged
Sometimes
sounds good.
being married can screw it up. I
Well,
know people
yeah.
who like get up in their
I mean, look at Angelina and Brad.
No, but you can get up in your head too much about it. You can get too freaked out by it. Usually it's
Right.
the guys who freak out. But
indefinite fiance is not necessarily a good place to be either.
Well,
That's
says
all
you.
I'm saying.
You never know. I mean, we only got married a year ago after being together for 19 years.
Aha.
And it's really made a difference. I
Yep.
really have to say.
And it's
so
good.
much of it is being able to call her my wife. I mean, partner is so law firmy and, you know.
Right.
yeah, it
just
is weird, huh?
And then, like,
Yeah.
my girlfriend, you know, calling him my boyfriend, he's 50 or he's going to be 50 this year.
Yeah.
It just feels like
Right.
you're my boyfriend. It
You
just,
can get away with partner now in every situation.
Yeah,
no, but Carol's right. Partner sounds like it's like a business partner or you're,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I was about 5 years before we got married, and
19. But what's the
but getting
change?
married
Yeah,
is-
what changed?
I think that it just feels more official. It's like, it's really nothing more than that. Like, it just feels, I don't know, always calling her my wife. You know, you don't realize how much you say wife until you're married. Like, this is my wife. Talk to the TV guy is coming to fix the DirecTV. You know, well, my wife is having problems.
Right.
I don't know. It just feels more cemented and more real.
When I proposed, it was because we had been together long enough so that it couldn't suck anymore if we broke up. Like if we had broken up at that point, it would have felt like a divorce.
Yeah.
So I felt like it could only get better if we got married.
Right.
Oh, I like
You
that.
know? And in fact, it was the case. Makes it so that like if you have an argument, there isn't a question of is this the argument that breaks us up. Your agenda is to solve the argument.
Right.
You know.
That's a good
true.
thought, yeah.
And there are shades of that.
I think it's interesting to talk to somebody who is together with someone for 19 years.
But it
though.
also wasn't
And then-
legal
I
for a
understand.
long
Well, I
time,
We
understand.
actually
right?
waited until
Yeah.
it was legal across the board. That's true.
Yeah.
We did do that.
I mean, I guess you could still have gotten married, but
Yeah.
Was your intent to get married for most of those 19 years?
Well, I just always felt on principle that until it was legal across the board for everybody. And when the Supreme Court, it was June of last year, of 15, then we said, we're definitely getting married.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I read about it in the New York Times. It was a big full-page thing on
That's
the New York
true.
Times.
What?
They did a whole vows column.
You know,
Oh, on
on
you
us.
guys?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant about Prop 8, and I was like, so funny, Mark.
I feature the vows every Sunday. I do a
Oh, that's
Periscope.
right.
I read
Oh,
the
do you
vow. I've been
really?
doing that for years. Since Periscope's been around, I've been doing it.
Wow.
And it's a kind of stupid thing. I know Carol's thinking, what a ridiculous thing. But it's
It's
fun.
funny.
People come in and we usually read the profiles. And then people in the room handicap how long the couple will stay together. Okay? But
Yeah.
when I saw you, literally I turned the page and there was you. And then nobody handicapped. We just, we sort of celebrate. I read the whole thing through and I said,
that's so
Carol,
nice.
these guys are dear friends of mine. So it's where, so that was how I found out though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Very
cool.
exciting.
Okay. I don't want to have a wedding either.
You
know?
don't?
Mm-mm.
See, that's the other thing. We didn't think we wanted a wedding, a big wedding. A big wedding is a good thing to do.
Shit, you guys are really
But
messing up
it
my
doesn't have
head,
to be a
my
big
headspace.
stupid wedding though. It can
Yeah.
be casual and fun but still big.
Right. because all the things, it's such a pain in the ass to put together. It's so many moving parts and so much aggravation. And then you do it and it's like, I'm so glad we did this.
Because it's a great celebration, isn't it?
Yeah, it really just the whole thing of it. I mean, we really did from kind of soup to nuts. I'm very, alpha. So, I mean, I had a playlist for the DJ to play, while the guests were sitting in the seats waiting. And then it was like, do you want me to add no, like you're playing, this is the order and this is what you're playing. And then people, going up to speak, Jay Leno spoke at our wedding and Bill Maher spoke.
Well, that's a wedding.
Yeah.
I'm not even going out there, but if I can get Leno and Maher to speak, throw in Carol Leifer at the end, I'll get married tomorrow.
Yeah, And then, of course, I did ask Larry David to speak, but of course, he was so Larry David is like, Kat, it's going to throw off my golf game the whole day. I'm going to be thinking about it. You got Leno, you got Maher. It's okay.
But he did come, of course.
He did come,
Yeah.
yes.
That's amazing.
It was a who's who, really, really
It's going
funny.
to throw off my golf game. That is funny.
And your vows, you were funny at all or not?
We did do funny vows. Yeah. And I did give Lori the biggest laugh of the vows because, we were going to say stuff to each other. So Lori got up there and she goes, Carol, you are the most amazing, gorgeous, sexiest, smartest, most wonderful woman I've ever met. And then she crumples it up and goes, all right, enough with your draft.
That's funny.
That is great.
She killed it.
And she's not a comedian.
No, she's not. But I was happy to. I was like, this is too good.
Oh, that's strong.
Yeah.
Did you give her parenthetical stage directions? Like, crumple disgustedly.
I said, pause, right. Crumple. Don't tear. Make sure to crumple.
That's really great.
Yeah. It was
that's
really,
awesome.
really, really fun.
So tell me about the short film. Now, Josh is a documentarian. He's done 2 documentaries now.
Oh, great.
One's about comics.
What's it called?
It's called I Need You to Kill.
Oh,
It's about
nice.
stand-up in Asia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Where can I see that?
Well, it's not out yet, but it'll be out hopefully soon.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I can send you a link, though.
Fantastic.
I can send a link.
All right. Hey. All right. Link worthy.
Tell me about the world of a short film and how 2 things. A, that flexes a creative muscle and it's a fun thing to do, and then how do you get it seen? Or is it now easier than ever to get it seen?
Doing this short film, it's really one of the things I love best about show business. It's like if you dream it, it can happen. Like I just thought of a very short, small, funny idea that wasn't a sketch, wasn't, couldn't become a sitcom. It was just a short film.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it up and it was very easy to write. It's only, it's 10 minutes. So the film was like 13 pages. And I know someone, James Costa, who's an animal friend of ours, who...
What species is he?
He's a Homo sapien and a homosexual, which is wonderful.
That's an animal.
He has done short films. He's financed them. So I met with him for lunch to how do you get financing for films? And he was like, well, I'll finance your film. I was like, fantastic. Then I call up Jane
What was your
Lynch.
budget?
It was really, I think it was about $80,000.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
A lot for a short film.
Wow.
Between 50 and 80, I think.
Wow.
And then I called up Jane Lynch to have lunch. And at lunch, I said, I wrote this short film. You'd be like perfect for it. Will you give it a look and tell me what you think? That night, she called me. She said, I'm in. And then Troy Miller, this great director who's done all of the Oscar little short films that Billy Crystal's done.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to him. I said, would you direct this? He came back to me the next day with like amazing notes and we'll do this shot. And he was like, I'm in. And literally I wrote it in March. We shot it in June. And it's like, I've never had something, and being an actor, how difficult it is for everything to come, just like bing, bing, bing. And we did it. And now we're doing the film festival circuit and winning certain film festivals.
Oh, that's
and
great.
Going up to San Jose and they have a film festival there in a couple weeks.
So obviously with the pedigree, it's you and Jane Lynch and as you say, all these people who are, real home run hitters are part of this project. So maybe it's not
Andy Kindler is in it.
No,
Is he?
Yes.
nice.
And the same thing.
One
I
of
just
my besties.
had lunch with him and
I'm having lunch with him tomorrow.
Fantastic. And I love his room at Meltdown. I'm going to be there, too, in April.
I've done that show.
Yeah, that's a great
I gave that show the name. And
Did
became
you
this
really?
particular show, yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Josh and Andy are butt buddies.
But it stars Jane and Andy, and they're so good together. She's
No
a songwriter, and he's
I
her
remember
agent.
him saying he was doing that
Yeah,
now.
yeah, he's so good on it.
So how then does a short film, and I know it's not your money, but an investor who writes the check, and it could
Yes.
be your money if you decide you couldn't get an investor, you might just finance it yourself. How do you get your money back on a short film?
That's the tricky question.
I didn't get mine.
No?
Yeah, you really don't go. There'll be other platforms for it moving forward, and I'm sure we'll find a way to do it, and especially having, Jane starring in it.
Sure.
We'll figure it out.
So at some point, if you write the check for a short film, you'll likely get whole on it. But you have to really love it, almost like a piece of art.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really what I've loved about the whole process. Like I said, you just think of something, and the next thing you know, you're shooting it. And we were looking at, she's a songwriter, little bungalows on Laurel Canyon to maybe shoot it. And then James Cost was like, well, why don't you shoot at my house? I'm like, great.
Most amazing house.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Set foot in. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Literally, that may be one of my favorite homes I've ever set foot in.
He's such an amazing guy. I mean, he's so charitable. Like when my first book came out, he was like, why don't I throw you a book party and we'll give all the profits to the Amanda Foundation, a great animal rescue, and we raised $35,000. And it's all through his generosity. I mean, he's an amazing, amazing guy.
Yeah, so incredible. And he does help out so many people in that animal rights community and animal rescue community. It's funny that you mentioned this short film because in a way, it answers a question I was going to ask you and I really wondered about. And here's what it is.
Okay. Coming full circle.
Yes.
Yes.
You have worked on so many shows. We mentioned Seinfeld and you talked about SNL as well, but you've been involved in a lot of
Larry
sitcoms.
Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, big sitcoms,
Yes.
and where big ideas come to blossom and big laughs come, and you've had so much input in all these different shows. To sit at home and not necessarily at that moment be part of a writing room, but come up with that idea that normally you would pitch for Larry Sanders or you would pitch for Ellen or wherever you are.
Yes.
It's great to have that outlet, and you just kind of answered it. The outlet might be, in one case, a short film or, another project like that.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about, show business and doing it as long as I have is I just like the idea of the short film. It's like, oh, let's explore that world. Like I've never done it before. And it's so much fun to, like we've been going to these festivals and watching. We just were in the Santa Barbara Film Festival and watching the other films and, who's also your competition. But it's just, I just love new opportunities and new stuff to do. It's really kind of what keeps me going,
Are there a lot of comedy short films? Or is that?
Yeah.
Oh, there are?
There are. There's Santa Barbara, where we just premiered a couple weeks ago. I was really impressed at the quality of the films. There were so many great films and so many really great funny films. So, no, people are, it's another thing I talk about in my book of people like laying back or, people we know who've left shows, because they, felt like there were other opportunities out there. It's like the Talented People Factory is working 24/7 all the time, churning them out every day. And the more you sit out, well, the new ones come off the assembly line and you're just as good and just as talented. So if you have something great, hold on to it because those are the rare, lightning in a bottle things that happen. Like stick with it because everyone is so easily replaced.
I mean, so much of what you say about your book and is in your book, your second book I'm talking about, where all these life tips and business tips come in. Your second book had a tip that I thought, wow. I thought, God damn it, if I'd read this book 15 years ago. I mean, I really mean it. I'm not just, you just go, wow. And here's one of them, and I'll never forget it. You said, you got to ask for it.
Yeah.
You got to ask for it.
Right. You don't ask, you don't get. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the beauty that I try to convey to people about asking for things. If you ask in a really nice, non-threatening way, the worst thing anybody can say is no. And once you're not afraid of no, and that's very different than I don't take no for an answer. When you're not afraid of no, you'll really soar because there are so many great opportunities out there. And, I'm on the receiving end of people asking me for things, but I'm constantly asking for opportunities. Like, for example, a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be nominated for an Emmy for writing for Alec Baldwin and Steve Martin for the Oscars. And so I was doing kind of the Emmy circuit, and I ran into Steve Levitan. Now, I'm a huge Modern Family fan. And I ran into Steve, and
Steve
I
Levitan
said,
created Modern Family.
Yeah. This is another kind of secret that I share in my book. I said to him, I'm such a major fan of the show. Would you be open to me coming in and pitching you some ideas? And he said, yeah, absolutely, which led to my writing A Modern Family. But I bring that up because how different is it if I ran into Steve Levitan and I said, can I come in and pitch to you? When you say that to someone, it's like you start reeling backwards like, whoa, like, it kind of blows up in your face. But when you say to someone, would you consider... are you open to me maybe coming in? It already puts kind of the ball in their court, and they don't feel so assaulted. So I always feel like with people, it's really easy to ask for things, but you got to really do it in a very non-threatening, and it's okay if you say no kind of way, because I think that's the secret to it. Look. With my short film, asking Jane Lynch if she wanted to be in it, asking Andy Kindler, asking James Constant if I knew people, investors. You have to ask people for things to make stuff happen.
And one of the great things you find in this town is that, like, actors want to work.
Totally.
Yeah,
and so it's
absolutely.
the people that you can get simply by asking, just because they love the game,
yeah,
is amazing sometimes.
And even that, if I had gone up to Steve Levitan like I did, and I said, are you open to me coming in and pitching ideas? And if he said, you know what, we have a really solid staff and I'm not really looking for any outside ideas. And if I just said, okay, cool, thanks for just, hearing my pitch, of pitching you, and let's have a drink and talk about something else.
Right, that's like a flesh
no
wound
harm,
at
no
worst.
foul.
Right, yeah. It's funny, someone very close to me, so I talk to her all the time. She's a real home run hitter in the business world. And she says, I'm amazed that all the guys in the room, they don't want to do the ask. They want me to do it.
Wow.
And I think men, we are really scared a lot of the times. And guys listening, I don't mean to, I'm sure you're all big, tough askers.
I was bad at the ask with women, and I'm bad at the ask in business.
And that's why you see at the dance at summer camp a bunch of girls on one side and a bunch of boys on the other, because the boys are afraid of that walk and the walk back. And I think it's hard to ask a girl out, and it's hard to ask for things. And that's why I remember that chapter from your book. I thought, she's right. If you package it the right way, if you don't get too much up in your head about it.
Yeah. And if it doesn't come off like, and if this doesn't happen, I'm going to kill myself.
Right. Not being desperate in your approach is massive when it comes to Hollywood in particular. Yeah. That sense of, I need this, is a huge repellent to people. Yeah,
and I can't tell you how many actors who've come in to audition for things that I've written who very smartly say, when they feel that it didn't go well, would you like to see it another way? And a lot of times the answer is, no, thank you. But, thanks. I think it's always smart of anybody to just ask those things, because it's not a big deal.
Right.
It's really not. I mean, it's funny when, would you like to, I always think when they pass on something, go, we're going in a different direction. I always felt like, the direction away from me.
That's okay. I can go in a different direction. No. We don't mean that.
Yeah. But it's really kind of what keeps the machine moving. You always have to be out there asking for what you need to move forward.
Right.
Did you, years ago, because you were so much in the zeitgeist of comedy, you were joking when you said there were 6, but there was a smaller group of comedians, but they're all the Larry Davids and Lettermans and you and Reiser and all the rest. Did you feel as though you wanted that show, the Carol show? Is that what everybody wanted, or a talk show?
Everybody kind of did, and I did have my show on the WB, All Right Already. It was only a season, but I'm still very proud of it. I'm still very complimented when people come over to me and remember episodes and stuff of it. I'm still always kind of vaguely satisfied when Garth Ancier, who was then the president of the WB, has come over to me a couple of parties and said, I'm so sorry that I canceled. All right. It's like, it's okay, Garth. It's 20 years later. It's okay. I've moved on.
By the way, he was the one who hated Apatow at the end of the Freaks and Geeks season,
really?
too.
Yeah,
When he was head of NBC.
Yeah, that was but, I always tell people, especially for stand-up, it's so brutal. It can be so brutal that you got to go into it because you love it and you live for it, as opposed to, well, this better bring me something else. Because when you go into it wanting something else out of it, it's not a good path.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, you came up in that generation of that was what happened to comics as they got a sitcom.
Yeah.
Was that your goal at a certain point, or was it just like that's the obvious destination for a great comic?
Yeah, no, I always wanted to do my own thing, and I felt like after Seinfeld, I did get this opportunity from the WB, and it was the fledgling network then. I still remember when
a couple shows on there.
we went to the upfronts. I got a big laugh at the presentation because they asked the people of the shows to get up and say something. I said, a lot of people put the WB down, but I'm here to say I'm going to take the show all the way to number 104.
Yeah, they had no shows that even showed up on the radar anywhere.
And the WB, was also, they had a lot of African American shows, and my other thing was, WB is going to stand for the White Broad Network, but it's just.
Yeah, it was a weird. I mean, you're so happy to sell a show, and then you realize so many other things have to come together for the show to really have a chance. Including where it's being seen.
Right.
I think that's the case.
First year sitcoms that's a brutal world.
It is.
First year sitcom.
Yeah, absolutely. But and being in the show and creating the show is very tough. So I really give it up for women like, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, who, it's such a task to be on camera and also behind the scenes. So I really give them props for making it work.
And did you have someone running the show with you who
I
knew
did.
your voice
I had
well
a
enough?
great guy named Stephen Engel, who we used to affectionately call a beautiful mind, because he has this freaky way of outlining shows. Like, you'll tell him a million ideas, and then he knows how to put it all together as scenes, and he'd go up, and it was like Russell Crowe, just he maps it all out with every beat, and this is new scene and everything. And he was really a great partner for me in the show, because he just kind of took my rambling ideas and just kind of pieced it all together.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you about is you seem to have found this new kind of robust relationship with the Howard Stern show. I've heard.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah, you're hosting the wrap-up show, which they do after the Stern show.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and I often will hear Carol hosting it, and you're a frequent visitor there.
And phony phone calls. This is very apropos. How did the phony phone calls come about? When I was up doing the Stern show to promote my book, I saw Sal and Richard, and I was like, hey, are you open to me doing some phony phone calls with you? What do you think? I used to love doing them as a kid, and they were like, sure, let's do it. So,
what a great thing, because it's always the two guys, and to have a woman doing them.
Yeah, and what is amazing about doing the phony phone calls on that show is, and what they like about, I think, having me too is, women, we get away with so much more. I mean, the wiggle room of niceness and, because I did one where I said that I was a cleaning woman and I had fallen into a piano while cleaning it, and that kids were coming to play the piano. If a guy says that, they're hanging up right away, and they were like, oh my God, ma'am, can you call 911? I'm like, no, I'm stuck at the piano, and you got to do so. Yeah, it's really crazy. You really see.
That's so true. You tend to go, oh, this guy's just being a crank.
Yeah.
But when you hear the woman, you kind of give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Very true.
Because we're not as douchey as guys.
It's true.
It's true. Look, I'm not a fan of men, to be honest. I'd be happy if women were running everything.
What's your scene Mark, can we talk about any? You have a girlfriend now?
Please,
I do.
thank you.
You were
Very,
the catch of this century.
Very excited. I've been with her now for a while, and I'm very excited.
Nice. Did you come to the Improv that night?
She did, and she's the one who the next morning was doing all of your. We just loved your act. We loved it, and we're going on a cruise to Asia.
Are you really?
Yes.
You're
Oh
Mr.
my
Cruise
God.
now.
Wow.
I love cruises now.
Wait,
Wow.
you just went on your first cruise not that long
I
ago,
did.
What do you
right?
do with eating vegan on a cruise?
I eat vegan, and usually they will find something for me. You know, like even
It's
if
not
it's
like
just.
I'm not a vegan in this hemisphere. It's not one of those things.
And sometimes the chefs dig it, like it's something new for them to do, like a new way to create food.
Cool.
Sometimes they're tired of making whatever the hell they're making.
Right. Where does the cruise depart from?
Singapore.
Wow.
Oh,
So we fly
Wait.
to Hong Kong,
in 10 days.
and then we fly to.
You know, I
asked
made
her-
a movie in those two places, so if you need any
Oh, that'd be
advice-
great. 'cause
Right.
We're 2 days in Singapore,
Nice.
so that would be cool. I'd love to go to a comedy club there. Yeah.
Comedy Masala is the name of that.
Oh wow, that would be really cool. It's like
really good
it's
chicken.
17 hours or something to Hong Kong, and then you fly through. I don't know if that's literally what it is or something.
It's like 13 or 14 to Hong Kong. And
And
it's
I
about
said-
3.5 to Singapore. From
God, that's a long
What
day.
line
man.
are you going on?
Going on Crystal Cruises.
Nice.
Yes, it's the top of the line, Carol.
Beautiful.
Did you do you have a balcony?
We do.
Yay!
Got a balcony.
You're doing it the right way.
I'm a casino gambler.
Oh, are
Big
you?
one.
I
Yeah.
am too.
Oh, are you really?
But I'm like
Oh,
we're
geez.
total
Hour 3.
slot slot machine.
Are you? Because I can't do the slots, but that's cool because they love slot players.
I would never do slots on a cruise ship, though.
There's no laws
Do-
at sea. There's
do they
nothing
have
governing
slots?
it.
It's a
on the
losing
cruise ship?
proposition.
Yes.
No.
So there's that. There's a lot of entertainment on board. I mean, it's fun, and it's not cheesy. You'd think it would be cheesy. Like I was really not a cruise guy, but
No, I like it too. I filmed one of my comedy specials on a cruise ship.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which one was that?
Carol Leifer Comedy Cruise.
No, this wasn't that one. No, it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
You're
still
going on
hate
a-
people, so I don't think I could do it.
Well, if you thought you don't like people on land,
That's always been my assumption.
yeah, get ready.
Yeah, and sometimes you end up having to sit with, not having to, like she doesn't like to sit with anybody, and I don't mind it. I like to learn about other people and kind of, but she's not so much. But
Yeah. I'm the same way. I just forgot where we went, where the woman was like, oh, right. We were asking about Wally's that's now on Canon. And I was like, what's it like? And was like, oh, you'll love it. It's community tables. I was like, I'm out.
Right.
yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah, when you're going out to dinner or just out to here in LA, I'm not so great to sit down.
My
right away.
wife came out and saw me doing stand up a month or so ago, and like after the show, it's like she had made friends with the entire table, and she was introducing me to 10 people she had sat with.
Yeah, that's like having your head held underwater too.
Yeah.
For you.
It is.
But anyway, yeah, so things are good. I mean, I think it's a good thing. So we'll see.
Nice. I'm
And-
happy because
yeah.
you're really a fantastic guy
No,
to
thank
be
you.
with.
Well, it
I'm
was-
assuming.
I was going to say hour 4.
Can I come to Lesbian World now?
I love Lesbian World. Carol Leifer, you're
Yes.
not only my favorite lesbian, you are one of my true
What a sitcom. My favorite lesbian.
my favorite people. I didn't even get a chance to mention that. Whatever. There's so much about you that I
Yes.
don't even get a chance to mention. But
And if people go to my website, all my club dates are on there.
what is your website?
CarolLeifer.com.
Hello, I just wanted to make it clear.
CarolLeifer.com.
And the books.
How to succeed in business without really crying. All your business tips you need to know right there in an entertaining format. And then, when you lie about your age, the terrorists win. Many stories about Lesbian World.
I love those stories about your life, and I read the books in that reverse order. First about your life, and then but they're both great books. So
Thank you.
Carol
Thank you,
Leifer.
Mark.
Carol
this is
Leifer.
fun.
That was so fun.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Carol Leifer.
Really.
Oh, okay. Let me just, yeah. It's just something. There we go. Yeah. I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. And if you haven't already, why don't you show your support and subscribe? What's the matter with you? Go to Edge Show. Oh, it's Edge Dash. What's with the dash? Stupid. All right, I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. Show your support and leave something on their website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is there a dash?
If you like The Edge, help us out by liking us on Facebook, subscribe on iTunes or on Stitcher.